Welcome to the PJ Hoop Podcast. I'm your host, PJ, and if this is your very first time checking out my podcast, first and foremost, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to check it out. I promise you won't be disappointed, but I also want to give you guys the 4 parameters that I go through week in and week out. First being a segment I like to call PJ's Echelon. Now in this segment, essentially, it's my power rankings. I'm giving you my top 10 teams, and I'm giving you a couple teams on the bubble, minding you that this list is progressive because I'm a progressive man. I'm not a perfect man. Another segment that I go through is a segment I like to call What's New. Now in What's New, essentially, I'm giving you some type of NBA history that was made over this last week, some type of statistical stat that may have happened over this last week. It could be me ranting or me just give you some type of news. Thirdly, the third thing that I like to go over is a segment I like to call Games of the Week. Now, in Games of the Week, essentially, I'm giving you games that I really enjoyed watching, games of some type of significance, or also I'm giving you games that I'm looking forward to in the coming week. Lastly, it's a segment I like to call In the Lab. Now, in the lab, I'm talking about today's NBA rookies. I'm talking about high school basketball. I'm talking about college basketball. And I'm also talking about international basketball. Now, before I dive into today's episode, I kind of just want to give you guys a heads up. So next week, I'm going to be on vacation, but don't worry. I am leaving you guys some content. Next week, it'll be a special episode where essentially I'm giving you guys my opinion on when a player's prime starts and when it ends. And you're not going to want to miss the episode. I think it's going to be a very good episode. It might be insightful for some of you guys. I'm actually going to be giving you guys about 10 to 15 of your favorite all-time players and what they did at the beginning stage of their prime and what they did during their prime. So you're not going to miss that. I'm going to leave that for you guys next week. So next week won't be a normal episode, but the following week I'll be back on. Just next week I'm going on vacation. Well, with that being said, I want to let you guys know this is being recorded Monday, January 27th at about 11 a.m. So keep that in mind as I'm going through each segment today. Now, my very first segment on the chopping block is a segment I like to call PJ's Echelon. Now, within PJ's Echelon, this is just my power rankings. So the parameters that I like to use for my power rankings is strength of schedule, eye test, statistically where a team sets, and then also a team's record. I don't really want to waste any more time with you guys. Just understand this is a progressive list. It's being recorded Monday, January 27th at 11 a.m., okay? My number one team for this week, this team is 37-8, and that is the Oklahoma City Thunder. Oklahoma, right now, they're 6th in offensive efficiency, they're 1st in defensive efficiency, and they're 1st in net rating. They get up. Dallas gets up for Oklahoma City. Oklahoma lost to Dallas, I think, twice over this last week. Anyways, OKC went 2-1 over the last week as well. They're 1st in free throw percentage at 82.5%, but they also averaged the second fewest free throw attempts at only 19. Something that is really interesting that I'll be kind of looking forward to is that they play the Timberwolves 3 times in the month of February. So that's something I'll be keeping my eyes out on. They're number 1. Number 2, this team is 36-9, and that is the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cleveland, right now, they're 1st in offensive efficiency, they're 12th in defensive efficiency, and they're 2nd in net rating. Right now, they're on a 3-game losing streak. They lost 2 of the 3 games against the Rockets. Mind you, they didn't have Evan Mobley for 2 of the 3 games. And honestly, what I kind of took from that just brief stretch of him not being in the lineup, for me, he's been the best player on this team. But I think it was kind of glaring. And also the Rockets match up with them very well. But they're still 2nd in points per game at 122 a game. They're 2nd in field goal percentage at 50%. They're 1st in 3-point percentage at 40%. Something also to keep mindful as we move forward through the season. As of today, Cleveland has the 10th easiest remaining schedule in the league. Number 3, this team is 32-14, and that is the Boston Celtics. Boston right now, they're 3rd in offensive efficiency, they're 5th in defensive efficiency, and they're 3rd in net rating. They're 6-4 in their last 10. They went to overtime with the Clippers, who didn't have Kawhi, they didn't have James Harden, they also didn't have Norman Powell. But I also didn't really want to hold that over their head. One, because Ty Lue's a great coach, but also they're in LA. Okay, let's be real. Let's be real. They're in LA. So I'm not mad at Boston at all. I wasn't mad at them about that game. I've been saying it for about 2 weeks now. I really believe this team is just really trying to get to the All-Star break. And then after the All-Star break, I think they'll rev it up. This is what champions do. You know what I'm saying? They understand the formula needed. Now, if they come out of the All-Star break and let's say mid-March, they're still super flat, then I'm going to hit the panic button and I'm going to come on here and I'm going to preach to you guys what's going on with them. But anyways, I'm not worried about Boston right now. They also have the fourth easiest remaining schedule left in the NBA. But also, get this, they play the Cavs and Knicks 2 times a piece in the month of February. So those are matchups that I'll be looking forward to with Boston. Number 4, this team is 30-14, and that is the Houston Rockets. Houston, right now, they're 9th in offensive efficiency, they're 4th in defensive efficiency, and they're 6th in net rating. So they beat the Cavs twice, as I just said, over this last week. They got Boston tonight, so that's a game I'm going to be watching later on today. I'm going to get all my stuff done and watch that game. So I kept them at 4 because I honestly just want to see how they do this upcoming week. This upcoming week, they have Boston, they got Atlanta, they got New York, and they got the Grizzlies. So I'm interested to see how they do before I move them up. I didn't want to just make a knee-jerk reaction based on them playing the Cavs twice and beating the Cavs twice. Don't get me wrong, like I'm giving them credit for it. Like salute to H-Town for what they've been doing. But for right now, I want to keep them at 4 because I want to see how they handle this upcoming week. Okay? Also, since January 1st, they're 6th in three-point percentage at 39%. They're 9-3 since the start of the new year. They're 5-3 in points in games decided by 3 points or less. They have the 3rd highest winning percentage at 62.5% in games, in clutch time games, which clutch time is games that are within 5 points and also within the last 5 minutes of the game. They stand right now at 15-9 in those games, so they're doing pretty well. Houston right now is number 4. Number 5 for me, this team is 31-15, and that is the Memphis Grizzlies. Memphis, right now, they're 5th in offensive efficiency, they're 6th in defensive efficiency, and they're 4th in net rating. I mean, they gassed 3 lottery teams over this last week. They're on a 6-game winning streak right now, which is the longest streak in the NBA. They have the 2nd hardest remaining schedule in the NBA. Gigi is back. I think, obviously, as this next couple weeks go by, he'll get more into a rhythm. They're 1st in points per game since January 1st at 125 per game. They're also 3rd in field goal percentage at 50%. Number 6, this team is 30-16, and that is the New York Knicks. New York right now, they're 2nd in offensive efficiency, they're 15th in defensive efficiency, and they're 5th in net rating. They have the 4th hardest remaining schedule left. Their next 4 games, mind you, are all at home, but they play Memphis, Denver, the Lakers, and the Rockets, so I'll be watching closely to New York over this. I'll be watching closely what New York does over this next week. They're allowing the 3rd best three-point percentage at 38%, but they're only allowing the 7th fewest attempts per game at 36. So they're not letting teams jack up threes. They're chasing teams off the 3-point line, but teams are shooting a high clip against them, so something to monitor. Offensively, they're 3rd in field goal percentage at 49%, and they're 5th in three-point percentage at 38%. Number 7, this team is 28-17, and that is the Denver Nuggets. Denver, they're 4th in offensive efficiency, they're 18th in defensive efficiency, and they're 7th in net rating. So 7 of their 10 games coming up before the All-Star break are against teams I consider lottery teams. So they should be able to rack up a good amount of wins coming up here pretty soon. They're 3rd in clutch time scoring, which I just explained to you guys what the clutch is. They average 11 points during the clutch. They're 4th in field goal percentage during the clutch at 50%, and they're also 4th in three-point percentage in the clutch at 43%. Obviously, salute Nikola Jokic. Second, they average the 2nd fewest pick and rolls frequency by percentage. So they use the pick and roll the 2nd fewest in the NBA at about 12%. They average the 4th. They average the 4th fewest ISOs 2 per game at about 4%. They're 3rd in points per game. They're 1st in field goal percentage, and they're 4th in three-point percentage. Denver's at number 7. Number 8, this team is 26-19. And for me, that is the Los Angeles Clippers. Los Angeles, right now, they're 22nd in offensive efficiency. They're 2nd in defensive efficiency, and they're 8th in net rating. They have the 7th hardest remaining schedule left. They played Boston tough, like I said, which I'm giving them credit for. But they got blown out by the Bucks, which is not okay. But anyways, they got blown out by the Bucks. They're still 3rd in opponents' points per game at 107. They're only allowing 107 points per game. They allow the 4th fewest rebounds per game as well at 42.5 rebounds per game. They're also 3rd in opponents' three-point percentage at 34%. The Clippers lock up. Shout out to Ty Lue and that whole coaching staff. Number 9, this team is 24-17, and that is the Milwaukee Bucks. Milwaukee right now, they're 12th in offensive efficiency. They're 8th in defensive efficiency, and they're 9th in net rating. They have the 6th hardest remaining schedule left. They're second in opponents' field goal percentage at 45%. They're first in opponents' blocks, so meaning their shots are not getting blocked. They're only allowing 4 per game. They're allowing the 7th most rebounds per game, unfortunately, at 45 per game. They're 5th in allowing the fewest turnovers per game too, so only 13. So meaning, in retrospect, they're not forcing turnovers, essentially. Number 10, this team is 24-19, and that is the Indiana Pacers. Indiana, they're 10th in offensive efficiency, they're 20th in defensive efficiency, and they're 13th in net rating. So I was kind of disappointed that they split their games with the Spurs in Paris. I was hoping that they would go to Paris and, treat it like a business trip and, beat the Spurs both times because they have been a really hot team. That didn't happen. I'm also not going to hold it over their head because they are in Paris and who knows what other activities they had to take care of while they're over there. So I didn't want to hold that over their head. They did split the games, which is perfectly fine. So they got a few quality games upcoming. I want to see how they fare in these games before I decide to move them up. They play Detroit coming up, the Lakers, the Clippers, and Atlanta. So we'll see if they can get back on track because they have been a really hot team since the start of the new year. They're 4th in field goal percentage at 49%. They average the 4th fewest threes per game at only 34 a game, but they're 8th in 3-point percentage at 37%. Now, my teams that are on the bubble, one is the Los Angeles Lakers. For me, this is just a very polarizing team. Some weeks they look like a playoff team. Some weeks they look like a late lottery / play-in team, and they're always complaining in the media. Another team that's on the bubble for me, and we'll see how they do moving forward since they made that trade, is the Phoenix Suns. They kind of have a soft schedule and time to integrate Nick Richards into their lineup. So I'm interested to see how they do moving forward. Right now, they're 7-3 in their last 10, and they're on a 2-game win streak, so they're kind of on a team on the bubble for me. Lastly is the Timberwolves. Seems like they get up for big games against like good teams, but then the small games against lesser teams they don't really get up for. I'm also still interested to see what they end up doing with Julius Randle, Naz Reid, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. These are players that potentially could be free agents this summer, so I'm interested to see what they end up doing with that. I really don't think that Gobert contract is going to age well. After this year, he still has 3 more years, and he somewhat has declined a little bit, taking a step back this year, but it also could be him just adjusting to Julius Randle. I don't know, but that's just something I kind of wanted to throw out to you guys. You guys let me know down in the comment section below who's in your top 10 and who do you have on your bubble. My next segment is a segment I like to call What's New. Now, What's New, I'm giving you some type of statistical or some type of history that was made in the NBA over this last week. I'm ranting or I'm just giving you some news, okay? I'm not going to waste any more time. I just want to dive straight into it. So I first want to start off and talk about a little bit of football. So obviously the Commanders made it to the NFC Conference title game, and the owner of the Commanders is also the owner of the Philadelphia 76ers, and he's been the owner of the Sixers for I think about 15 years. Don't quote me on that, but he's only been the owner of the Commanders I think for 1 or 2 years or something, not long at all. But long story short, I think the Commanders get into the conference title game. I think that potentially could make him look at the Sixers and really make some changes. So I just want to throw that out there to you guys. It's just something that just kind of came to my mind as I was watching football over this weekend. Okay, let's dive straight into it. So the NBA plans to change the shape of the shot clock from the current shape to going to more of a circle shape. So I thought that was really interesting. They're going to start doing that next year. Alperen Şengün becomes the youngest center in NBA history to reach 1,000 career assists. So shout out to Şengün. Giannis has the most 30, 15, and 5 games in the last 50 years. So shout out to Giannis. Giannis is always making history, man. He's been on here so much for me. Another thing that happened, Darius Garland, just about a week and a half ago, he ended up moving third in the Cleveland Cavaliers all-time assist board. He's third currently now. He's only trailing Mark Price and LeBron. Shout out to Darius Garland. Another thing, Derek Lively ended up fracturing his foot. He's going to be out 2 to 3 months for the Dallas Mavericks. Hopefully he's able to get back right before the playoffs so he can at least get a couple games under his belt. So players to reach 13,000 career points before turning 27 LeBron, Wilt, Kobe, Kevin Durant, Tracy McGrady, Carmelo, and now Jason Tatum. Shout out to Jason Tatum. Nikola Jokic, last week against the Sacramento Kings, dropped the second ever 35 points, 20 rebounds, and 15 assists game in NBA history. He did that against the Kings last week. Wilt did it in 1968. On January 20th. So something really interesting I came across was Willie Reed he was the only player to have the most consecutive games where his points increase. Okay, really weird, interesting stat I came across. He went from 4 points all the way up to 23 during a 9-game stretch. That's the longest in history. Other players that ended up doing something similar, but only an 8-game stretch, was Mike McGee, who I have no idea who that is, but also Jeremy Grant of the Portland Trailblazers. He did it back in 2023. So that's something I kind of wanted to point out to you guys. You guys let me know down in the comment section below what's new. What's new to you guys? Also, I seen that Jimmy Butler obviously is suspended indefinitely. That's irrelevant, honestly. I don't talk about that kind of stuff on my show because I want to give you guys like really good content. You know, I don't want to focus on what mainstream is focusing on. Jimmy Butler right now, he's irrelevant. Let's be real. He's way past his prime. He's irrelevant. You know, I'm sorry to say it. But anyways, you guys let me know down in the comment section below what's new for you guys. Obviously, there's more stuff that I could talk about, but I'm trying to keep my episodes between 25 and 35 minutes. So my next segment is a segment I like to call Games of the Week. Now in Games of the Week, I'm giving you guys games that I really enjoyed watching, games of some type of significance, but also debuting today, I'm going to give you guys games that I'm looking forward to over the next week. Now keep in mind, obviously, I'm not going to be on air next week, so I'm only giving you guys games for this next upcoming week. I'm not going to give you 2 weeks out because that's just too many games. I would sit up here and give you guys like 20 different games that I'm looking forward to over the next 2 weeks. I just think that's just too much. But also, I want to give you guys the one game that I really enjoyed over this last week. I was going to do multiple, but again, I want to save time for my other segments in my episode because my college episode is going to be pretty packed today as well again. So the game I chose this week, this game took place on January 22nd on Wednesday, and that was the Cleveland Cavaliers versus the Houston Rockets. Houston won this game 109-108. Mind you, Evan Mobley did not play in this game. Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell had a really, really good first half. Just them. They were honestly keeping the team afloat. They shot 10 for 20 from the field and only had 2 turnovers. And I'm bringing up the 2 turnovers because Houston is forcing the most turnovers in the league since January 1st. They did have 9 turnovers as a team, though, going into halftime, and they only shot 40% from the field and 32% from 3. Going into half, Cam Whitmore had a really good first half as well. He ended up having 12 points in that first half. He shot 5 for 7. And honestly, just as of recently, he seemed a lot more happy. But who wouldn't be? You know, if you love basketball and you're super passionate about basketball and you're playing at that level, you want to be on the court. And they just, for a while, he's been in the doghouse. So it's been nice to see him kind of get some run again and kind of getting back into the spirit. I noticed that Cleveland was playing a zone about midway through the second and pretty heavy during the second half, too. It was giving Houston fits for a little bit, and it forced Houston into about 10 turnovers. So, you know, I wanted to shout out to Kenny Atkinson for making that adjustment. Another thing, I kind of just want to fast forward to the fourth quarter. So in the fourth quarter, Cleveland went on a 10-0 run about midway through the fourth, and they cut the lead to about 1 point with about 6 minutes left. They stuck with the zone. I told you that zone was giving Houston problems. And it kept forcing Houston to take really bad shots. Houston, during that 6-minute stretch, also didn't score a single point. And during the whole fourth quarter, like there was a period in time where Cleveland, they ended up going on a 19-0 run. And then Fred VanVleet kind of calmed everything down. He hit, I think, a step back 2. And I think the next play down, he hit a 3 to kind of cool everything down. That zone is something that I'm going to be kind of paying attention to moving forward, to seeing if other teams decide to implement that on Houston and just seeing how that goes. I also want to give a shout out to Jalen Green because about under a minute to go, he played really, really good defense on Darius Garland, in my opinion, which forced Darius Garland into a turnover with Amen Thompson ended up stealing the ball from him, and he ended up going to the free throw line. And Kenny Atkinson ends up challenging the play that it was a foul on Amen. And I think Cleveland did win the challenge. I don't remember fully, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe Cleveland did end up winning that challenge. But anyways, down the stretch after that whole, him going to the free throw line, challenging the play, Thompson played really great defense against Donovan Mitchell towards the very, very end of the game, and they forced him into a really tough shot. Then Şengün got the rebound. He ended up getting fouled. The play that Allen fouling Şengün, that play got challenged as well. But they end up losing that challenge. So they won the first challenge with the Men Thompson one. Cleveland won it, but then they lost the challenge with Şengün. Şengün hits both free throws. But then crazy at the very end, Darius Garland was fouled on a 3 by Tari Eason. And mind you, Garland's like a 91% free throw shooter, 90% free throw shooter. So I was watching the game. I was like, bro, he's going to sink all 3 of these, or maybe 2 of the 3, He ends up missing, I believe he ended up missing 2. He ended up missing the first and the second free throw. And then Mitchell missed the final shot, and that was the end of it. I really enjoyed that game, though. I really enjoyed watching Houston play. I would say for me, they're probably one of my top 3 favorite teams to watch this year, for sure. I just love the way the brand of basketball they play. And they, like I said, they match up with Cleveland very well. But mind you, Evan Mobley was not playing in this game. So, that matters when you're missing your best player. Now, you guys let me know, what game did you guys really enjoy this week down in the comment section below. I want to let you guys know games I'm looking forward to this week. I have 2, actually 3 that are going on tonight. One is the Rockets versus the Celtics, and then Memphis versus the Knicks, and then the Clippers versus the Suns. Games on Wednesday, January 29th that I'm looking forward to is the Timberwolves versus the Suns, the Nuggets versus the Knicks. On Thursday, we get part 4, and I'm super excited. We get the Rockets versus the Grizzlies, part 4. I'm excited for that. A game on Friday that happened is the Bucks versus the Spurs, Giannis versus Victor. I'm look forward to when they play each other. And then lastly, on Sunday, we get the Grizzlies versus the Bucks. I think that's going to be a really good matchup as well. You guys let me know down in the comment section below, what games are you guys looking forward to this week, and what games did you guys really enjoy last week? Again, I watch a lot of games, but again, I'm trying to keep these episodes between 25 and 35 minutes. My last segment is a segment I like to call In the Lab. Now, In the Lab, essentially, I'm just talking about today's NBA rookies, or I'm talking about high school, college, or international basketball. Today, we're going to start off with some news. So, Boogie Flan, he's a point guard I guess you could say point guard / combo guard that goes to University of Arkansas. It's just been announced that he's going to miss the remainder of the season with the hand injury. Right now, I have Boogie Flan as a late first rounder. And so I'm interested to see if he decides to go back to college or if he's going to come out. I think he should go back for one more year, but I just wanted to put that out to you guys that he got hurt. Another thing that took place was Noah Pinda I think he plays over in, France. Don't quote me on that, but I think he plays in France. He won the MVP of the LNB Young Stars game. He has a really good feel for the game, in my opinion. He's actually one of my lottery players that I talked about last week just briefly. But he's a lottery pick for me, in my opinion. A late lottery pick, probably. Potentially top 10, depending on what team is picking. But in that game, he had 18.7 assists, 6 rebounds, and 3 steals. So I wanted to give a shout out to him for winning the MVP of that game. So another shout out I want to give is to the St. John's men's basketball team and Coach Rick Pitino. In the last 13 games, check this out. They're 12-1 in their last 13 games. They're shooting 27% from 3, which ranks as 358th in the nation. And they're 4th in defensive rating, though. They average the second lowest turnover percentage. They're second in offensive rebounding. They're first in second chance points. They're third in points in the paint, and they're third in blocks. Their next game, they played Georgetown, which has another kid that is in my top 10. For my top 10 prospects, his name is Thomas Sober. He's a Georgetown. He goes to Georgetown right now. He's a center. I think he's a center / power forward. He's 6'11". I really like his game personally. I'm going to be watching that game extremely close. They play tomorrow. But I wanted to give a shout out to St. John's because they're doing it on pure grit and pure coaching. So shout out to Coach Pitino and shout out to St. John's. Another thing that took place was a 2025 Bosnian wing. I'm sorry if I'm going to botch his name, but I'll leave his name up in the corner for you guys. His name is Haran Zarno. He committed to University of Indiana. Zarno averaged 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists in Bosnia's top league this season while shooting 48% from 3. So I wanted to point that out to you guys that ended up happening. So next year I'll be kind of paying attention to seeing how he does next season. Another big performance that took place, I talked about this kid a couple times, is Mohamed Dabone. Ended up winning, I think he won the MVP of the game of the tournament. But anyways, he plays for Barcelona. He plays for Barcelona's U16 team. They ended up winning the finale against Real Madrid. He had 20 points, 12 rebounds, 4 blocks, and he shot 5 for 10 from the field. He was 0 for 1 from 3 and 0 for 1 from the free throw line. Mind you, guys, this kid's only 13. And yeah, you guys probably wonder, why am I covering a kid that's young? He's a talented kid. He's a very talented kid. He's 6'11 at 13. But to me, he moves like a Victor. He moves like a Giannis. And so I want to get on him early for you guys, and we can just follow him as he grows. It's going to be interesting next year, because next year he'll be able to play in the U18s at only 14, which is going to be insane. But yeah, Mohamed Dabone had a really good game. So I wanted to check in on 5 more of our top 30 preseason prospects that we will be keeping our eyes out on. I gave you guys a complete list in episode 16. If you guys didn't get a chance to watch that, I will go back and check that out, because I give you guys my preseason. But with that being said, I want to check in on 5 of them. So one of them we're going to check in is Boogie Flan. Obviously, I just told you guys he got injured, but he's a 6'2 point guard / shooting guard freshman from Arkansas. He was playing 34 minutes a game, averaging 15 points, 3 rebounds, 6 assists, 1.5 steals, 1.5 turnovers, shooting 39% from the field and 36.5% from 3 on 5 attempts and 84% from the free throw line on 3 attempts. Boogie Flan, to me, I think could be a really good 6-man in the NBA. We'll see what happens, though, because when Coach Cal was at Kentucky, he produced a lot of guards. So who knows? Boogie Flan might be another one of those. But for me, Boogie Flan right now he's a really good scorer. He moves very well with it. He moves like an NBA player to me. But I'm interested to see if he goes back another year or not. We'll see. Another player I want to talk about and check in on is Nolan Traore. He's in France. He's a French guard. He's about 6'4". So I'm going to give you guys his stats across 2 different leagues that he plays over in France. So they're going to be combined stats. He's averaging 23 minutes a game, 12 points, 2 rebounds, 4.5 assists, 1 steal, and 2 turnovers. He's shooting 44% on 2s, 29% on 3s, and 72% from the free throw line. I think as of late, he's gotten into a lot more better rhythm. And also over in France, it's a little different. The older people really don't want to be giving the young guys, control of the offense, so it's a lot harder for him to display how good of a player he is. But to me, Nolan Traore is still, I think, a lottery pick. Another player I want to talk about his name is Kareem Lopez. He's 6'8", small forward / power forward. He's from Mexico, but right now he's playing for the New Zealand Breakers, and he won't be draft eligible until 2026. I talked about him actually couple weeks back, even during some of my summer episodes. But right now, he's averaging 23 minutes a game. He's averaging 9.5 points, 5 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 block, and 1 steal. He's averaging 3 personal fouls, 1 turnover. He's shooting 55% on 2s. He's shooting 33% on 3s, and he's shooting 74% from the free throw line. Again, he won't be draft eligible until 2026. He's going to be a lottery pick, in my opinion, in 2026. Another player I want to talk about is Hugo Gonzalez. Hugo is a 6'6 shooting guard / small forward from Spain. I actually talked about him quite a bit in episode 5 during my FIBA episode when they had that big FIBA U18 tournament. But right now he's kind of been he hasn't really been getting the minutes, but when he has gotten the minutes, he's shown glimpses. Right now he's averaging only 10.5 minutes, 3 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist, 0.5 turnovers. He's shooting 48% on 2s, 27% from 3, and 74% from the free throw line. Again, if you want to hear more about Hugo Gonzalez and a larger sample size of him, go ahead and check out episode 5. I talked a lot more about him during that episode and more deep dive and draft analysis on him. Another player, and lastly, I want to check in on this week. His name is Jackson Shelstead. He's a 6-foot point guard, sophomore at a University of Oregon. Right now, he's averaging 32 minutes a game. He's averaging 13 points a game, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, and 1 turnover. He's shooting 45% from the field. He's shooting 38% from 3 on 4.5 attempts, and 89% from the free throw line on 2 attempts. Jackson, in conference play, it's kind of dipped a little bit. His efficiency has dipped a little bit, but I like watching Jackson Shelstead, so I wanted to kind of give him a little shout out because he was one of our top 30 players. I don't necessarily think he's an NBA player right now, but maybe his junior or senior year, maybe he'll become one. But yeah, I want to give a shout out to him. But also, while I'm at it, I want to give you guys my mid-season Final 4. So one of my Final Four teams is the Duke Blue Devils. I'm a Duke Blue Devil fan, but that's not why they're my Final Four team. But if you want to know why I'm a Duke Blue Devil fan, go ahead and check out episode 16, where I kind of gave you a deep dive on why. But the reason why I personally got Duke in my Final Four is they play shutdown defense, and they have 3 to 4 NBA players, in my opinion, and they play such a great brand of basketball. And Cooper Flagg on any given night is the best player on the court. And I think John Shire, our head coach, I think he's due to break through and get to the championship game. I think this is the year we're going to do it. I would just personally like to see more pick and roll with Con Knipple and Cooper Flagg, kind of spamming that a little bit more, but also running more plays for Isaiah Evans would be ideal for me. But anyways, they're one of my Final Four teams up to this point in the season. Another team is the Auburn Tigers. They're loaded with senior talent. And also Tahid Pettiford. I'm sorry if I pronounced his name wrong, but I talked about him about 2-3 weeks ago. For me, he's a sleeper in my opinion. He's a really, really good point guard. To me, he kind of plays like Isaiah Thomas of the Boston Celtics / University of Washington. Isaiah Thomas is how he plays to me. That's a scary team. And they got Johnny Broome. That's a scary team, man. Another team on my list for my Final Four is the Florida Gators. Florida got strong senior guard play, and that's what you need in the NCAA tournament. His name is, I think, Walton Clayton Jr., I think is his name, if I remember correctly. He's a bucket. He's a bucket. They got strong guard play. They're one of my Final Four teams up to this point in the season. Another team is the Iowa State Cyclones. Yes, you heard me. Iowa State is balling. They got great size from their guards. They play great defense. They're a physical team. I just wonder if they got enough shooting and rim protecting to go far in the tournament. But right now, they're one of my teams. And then my team on the bubble, who I was considering, was Houston. Houston has a great offense, very good defense, solid guards. I'm just not really liking their guard size, and they don't draw many fouls. And I think if you can get teams in foul troubles in the tournament, that could play to your advantage. So that's why I didn't put them in my Final Four. You guys let me know down in the comment section below who's in your Final Four and what college / high school / international news did you come across this last week. And with that being said, I want to thank you for checking out my podcast, the PJ Hoop Podcast. I'm your host, PJ, and PJ's out.